Raids have finally arrived in Modern Warfare 2, and we have episode 1, which is called Adamgrad. And I have already beat this thing, and I'm probably, after I record this, going to play it again and try to just, beat that and maybe eventually get to the veteran version, and also collect some intel also. But after my first completion, I just wanted to share my thoughts with you guys just right away and what I'm thinking about it. Was this a good first raid for Call of Duty, or was it underwhelming? Well, to be honest, it's kind of a mixture of both of those. And let me explain exactly why I think it's the case. First off, one thing I absolutely love about this raid, something that is just so cool, is that the entire map is completely original. Nothing's reused from campaign, multiplayer, or Warzone. Sure, there are like throwbacks to, previous campaign missions from COD 4 2019, but that's not the same thing as reusing them. They're just like small sections you walk through there. So the map definitely is an entirely original map, and that is something that is so nice to see, because it's just something that we haven't seen in third game modes in Call of Duty for a bit now. So this is definitely very impressive, and I absolutely love that part about it. Another thing I really liked about the raid were the puzzles. Like, a lot of the puzzles were fun to solve. I liked having to try to figure out just by ourselves how exactly you solve the, the Russian letter to the number, and solving the puzzles like that. They did reuse it twice throughout the mission, but it was different both times slightly because of a timer, and also actually have to physically be in rooms instead of just looking at things through cameras. Like, all of that was really cool. Had a lot of fun with that. The underwater area was a lot of fun to have, like just having to stay next to your teammates, or you could hand off the breather thing is also really fun. I absolutely love that. A little mazy area to go around. Mazes really aren't really done that well in gaming normally. I kind of liked how it was done in this water area. Liked that definitely a lot, and those are some really big W's for this raid game mode. It was overall really fun, and I had a good time playing it. But that's not to say it was perfect, because there is a glaring issue with this raid. And honestly, if they just added this into the raid, this probably would have been a perfectly solid, like a really good first raid. But what that is that it was lacking one of the major things for raids, because I've been saying this in all my videos leading up to raids, that raids are built of killing grunts, completing objectives, and completing puzzles. And this raid had all three of those, but there was one major thing it was missing, and what that is the last and final thing, and arguably the most important part about raids, is the mini boss fights and the final boss fight. Those were nowhere to really be seen. The only thing that is somewhat resembles that is the final step, where you just have to survive an onslaught of a bunch of different enemies getting thrown at you, which is not really what I was hoping they would do, because boss fights are just so important for game modes like this, and it's just really unfortunate that it didn't have any of those. To me, I think like all the other really good raid game modes, obviously looking at Destiny 2 and stuff like that, like you look at what they do with their raids and you see their boss fights, like that is one of the main reasons why it's so exciting, right? And why it's so cool. Everyone wants to get to that final boss fight, and also the mini boss fights are along the way. Like, that's kind of the main selling point of a lot of these raids, and for it to not have one is really unfortunate. And I don't exactly know if this is a problem just with the game period, or it's just them trying to figure some stuff out, which is why I'm going to give Infinity Ward a little bit of slack here, because this is the very first time they are doing a raid, and I did have fun with the raid. There was definitely a lot of fun and cool things to experience while we were playing this raid, and I do like it. I'm definitely going to replay it a couple times for sure, but in the future, we do need to see mini boss fights, and especially final boss fights, added to the game, because it's just a little bit underwhelming when, we unlock that final door and it's just the ending cutscene. And don't get me wrong, I'm glad we're getting full rendered out ending cutscenes. Like, sometimes you don't even get that with the other third game modes for Call of Duty, Call of Duty Zombies. So I do appreciate we're getting those cutscenes and all that stuff, both intro and outro, but we do need boss fights. Like, that's something that is just a must for game modes like this. And I know this is a little bit difficult to do in terms of storytelling because for some godforsaken reason, Infinity Ward is dead set on the raid story tying into the campaign story, which I completely disagree with that, but like, we need to do something here. We need to have some sort of boss fights. There needs to be mini boss fights, and there needs to especially be a final boss fight, because if this raid was exactly how it is, except you add in 2 mini boss fights and also a final boss, like, this raid would be near perfect of a first raid for a Call of Duty game. Like, it would be near perfect. Like, that's how much I like this raid outside of this one major issue. It's just that's holding this raid back. Overall, it's really solid in all the other areas. It's just that we don't have mini boss fights and boss fights in this raid, and that is incredibly disappointing, but it's just something they need to really focus on doing in the future. And believe it or not, I do have faith in Infinity Ward in making boss fights. When they actually put their effort into making these boss fights, like, we've seen what they could do with their previous game, Infinite Warfare, because if you guys played Infinite Warfare, more specifically Zombies, like, that game had some crazy boss fights in it, so we could see what they could do. We see what they're able to do in terms of gameplay with their boss fights. So if they just take inspiration from their own previous game and add those boss fights, and obviously not the exact same ones, but you know, same idea of boss fights into raids could really be something special for them, which I hope is what happens in the future with their raids, because right now they're a fun game mode for sure, but I don't know how replayable they will be without these mini boss fights and boss fights also. Like, that's something that I think is very necessary for raids to really be successful in this game. And again, I'm giving Infinity Ward slack here because it is their first attempt at a raid, and I think it was a good first attempt, but it definitely needs to have boss fights and mini boss fights in the future. I keep saying it because it is really that important. But those are just my thoughts on this whole raid situation, but I'd love to hear for everybody who's played raids also. So let me know down in the comments, what do you think about raids? You guys like them, you hate them, or what are your thoughts? Just let me know down in the comment section below. And hey, for those people who actually haven't been able to complete the raids because they can't find the proper squad, I've been kind of advertising this for a while, but head down to the description of this video. I'll have my Discord linked. You could join that, and there's a section entirely there dedicated for people just trying to find other people to connect with to complete the raids. So if you guys haven't, do that for sure. Regardless though, that's going to be it for me. If you guys did enjoy the video and you found it informative or entertaining in any way, shape, or form, I would appreciate if you guys dropped a like, subscribe, bell, share, or any of that great stuff. But I'm going to go. I'll catch you guys in the next stream, video, or whatever the heck it may be, and laters guys.